I am Dr. Louis Faillace. I arrived at the medical school the end of August in 1971. I was the first full-time clinical chairman. Dr. Ruiz was here. He was part-time, and they were basic science people. Now, I want to describe the school and the Herman Hospital of 1971, so you get a picture of what we're about, and then I'll tell you why I came. When I looked at the job in June of 1971, I accepted the job the July 4th weekend of 1971. When I looked at the job, what was present at the time? Chevis Smythe, the dean, had an office in the library building. That was his office. They had rented 2 floors and renovated a building. It was called the Centex building, was the corner of Holcomb and the Bayou, just on the other side of the MD Anderson. It was an old building, but they had recruited the basic science people. They were here. And now let me tell you my perspective, what I heard about why the school started. The school started because, one, there was a shortage of physicians. 2, the federal government in the late 60s appropriated money for new medical schools. We were one of them. San Antonio was, we were, and Texas Tech were one. Now some of the others was South Alabama in Mobile, and in Tampa, South Florida. And there were others too, but those are the ones I knew the people. We were always in a rush, and that had to do something with Chevis Smythe, who was always in a rush. Chevis, I always said Chevis was the Pied Piper. I don't know how he recruited people. Now, what happened is he recruited students when he arrived, in 70, I guess, late 69. When he arrived, there were, he farmed out students. There were 20 students, I guess, in Galveston and Dallas. And then the first class was coming in September of 1971, the freshmen. The other class would come back to us in the following year. The other thing he did was, it was a 3-year school, which was crazy. And so you went continuously. Plus the fact we were under great pressure to increase students. So we started with 20, then we got 30, then we went to 50, 75, 125, 175, 200. I mean, it was just crazy. And we didn't have enough clinical facilities. So we had this whole constant rush of recruiting faculty, building a building, trying to find beds. I'll say that it was an interesting time. But Chevis was a master recruiter, and now he recruited. I was from Johns Hopkins. Rodney Howell was from head of pediatrics. Stan Dudrick was a budding star in surgery from Pennsylvania. And Walter Kirkdale came from Iowa. So we were all from university hospitals. Also at the time they were renovating the Cullen building. And psychiatry was on the top floor. We had 22 beds assigned to us. I helped design it. I mean, I had a real opportunity to do it the way I wanted to do it. So that's the reason why I came here. I was at Hopkins. I wanted to be a chairman. I would have been a chairman. I was going to be a chairman. Okay, I had the credentials and all that, but I saw it as an opportunity to build something new the way I wanted to do it. And I wasn't in the mainstream of psychiatry. I was very biologically oriented, drug oriented, versus the very psychological, analytical style at the time. That's the reason why Chevis appointed me, because of that. He had a hard time getting psychiatrists, couldn't get psychiatrists. I don't know how many before me they got around to me. But I heard later on there were 2 candidates. I was one, and the other person was originally from Harvard. and he was kind of really psychological oriented. And everyone thought that Chevis was going to appoint him because he was from Harvard. And last minute, Chevis said, no, I want to get the guy who's biologically oriented. I want to get him because that appealed to Chevis. So that's why he hired me. And I took the job and never regret it. I did it because I wanted to build something, and over time, I was able to do it. I'm an Easterner. I went to medical school, Marquette in Milwaukee. Never thought I'd go. My wife is from Oklahoma. I met her at Johns Hopkins. Told her when we got married, I'm not interested in any part of the country. I want to stay in the East, so I wind up in Houston, Texas. She always bucked. We love it. Okay, it took me. For the first 2 years, outside the short time Norm was here, I was by myself until I recruited Bob Gwynn, who followed me as chairman. He's a good guy. I was his attendee when he was a first-year resident, so I know Bob real well. He was interested in research. He worked with one of my good friends at the NIH, so we go way, way back. He came. Oh, and then followed also, there was a doc by the name of Tom Whitcobb, who was from Minnesota, came down for 2 years, and Ed Riley, who was here for a long time, he came from Iowa. So we then had 3 people. After that, we recruited quickly. Got Rich DeWall came, George Glass came. Once you had a few people, plus the fact we we had some labs. I forget the name of the buildings now torn down. Had some labs there, and we had the first part of the medical school. After the medical school was built, and then the second part, we had offices there. So we had different offices. We started people, and Herman had built the Jones building, and we had a new psych unit. So I got some federal money for behavioral science, and we started a residency program. We got that started right away. So with a very short period of time, we had the beds. We got 3 residents. We had 4 faculty, and we were in business. And we grew very rapid. Bill Smith then was the hospital administrator, the second one. He was talking to the chairman. He said, you guys want more money for residency? I'll do it if psychiatry takes over more beds. Even so, we went from 22 beds to 80 beds. We had 4 units, filled them up. We were busy, filled them up. We had a pediatric child psychiatry unit. We had the general adult unit. We had a 10-bed geriatric unit, and we had a big alcohol and drug abuse unit, because that's what I was interested in. So we had 8 beds, expanded the residency program. Most of our money was coming from private practice, and we were recruiting, and we had Bob, who Gwynn was in research. He set up labs, so we were rolling. We were starting to, from the point of view of where we wanted to go. We were on. I knew we were on our way. Then the next thing is how you manage it, how to recruit people. So much pressure to teach the students right away, and I recruited a lot of the residents with the idea, well, why don't you stay for a couple of years, see if you want. If you don't, you want to go into private practice. Private practice is very lucrative, so we had a lot of short-term people, but that was fine with me. I'm sure the dean was wondering, well, you get these people, they go, they come, no. But there was method to the madness too, and then eventually you pick the good ones off to stay. So we were growing, and growing very rapidly. Go to 1981, which is the critical decision. In 1981, psychiatry in the state of Texas was terrible. The people in Houston were sent to either Rusk or to Austin. And the treatment wasn't very good. They were sent back usually to the street, and on the street. It was really, really bad. Lieutenant Governor Bill Harvey, who's just a wonderful person, really dedicated public service, he decided that we should have a hospital in Houston, psychiatric hospital. Okay. Also, but this was nothing new. There was the Texas Research Institute of Mental Science. Well, anyway, in 1981, the state, and especially Harvey, was unhappy with the situation. And I knew that was going on, but that was the state, the mental health department. The county was going to pay half the hospital, and the state was going to pay the other half, run by the Department of Mental Health, the state mental health department. A good friend of mine, John Fleming, who was the original development officer for UT here. He had gone on, he was then, I think he was executive vice president of Texas Women's Hospital up there. Eventually became president of Texas Wesleyan. John called me up on a Friday afternoon, Friday about noon. He said, Lou, he said, Governor Bill Harvey is going to call you, or secretary will call you to make an appointment to see you, so hang around Friday afternoon. I said, this was the end of the session. The session ended a week from the following Friday. And I said to myself, John must be smoking something, you know. I don't know Bill Harvey for the man. So sure as heck, about 5 o'clock, I got a call from Harvey's secretary and says, Dr. Faillace. I said, yeah. She said, Lieutenant Governor Harvey wants to meet you in his office at the Post Building at 10:30 Saturday morning. When Bill Harvey, Lieutenant Governor, the most powerful man in the state, says you'll be there, you'll be there. So at 10, because I knew it was going to be about the hospital, which I didn't know much about. So I walk in there, and Bill Harvey's introduced, talks to me. He says, I got a problem. And he says to me, we're building this hospital, and what do you think? Now, asking me, so I'm not bashful or anything, I'm pretty aggressive. I said, Governor, I said, if you want it, I'll be glad to run it for you. I'll build you one of the best teaching hospitals in the country. And I said, but it's going to cost you some more money. I said, if it's going to be UT's got to run it, we need 20% more to build it because we need extra offices, and 20% to run because we need residents. That's got to be the, he looks at me and he says to me, okay, I can do that. So I said, okay, fine. So then I said, well, can I get a hold of trims too? And he says, not now. Now, the critical thing was the not now. Okay, good. So now, I left the building, I walked out, and I said, what the hell am I, what did you do? At that time, the University of Texas had one teaching hospital, Galveston. They didn't want any more. I had committed the university to take on another teaching hospital. Okay, so I thought over the, I said, when is it going to hit the fan? I knew it was going to hit the fan. I mean, so about noontime, I get a call from Roger Bowles, the president's office. He says, Don Walker's the chairman, the chancellor of UT, and he's in my office and he wants to see you. I knew Don. So I said, well, here it is. So I walked over. At that time, Roger was officed in a couple of floors of the Prudential building, which Anderson owned and eventually tore it down. So I walked in there, and Don Walker's a great guy. I know. He said, Lou, what the hell are you doing? And I said to him, what do you mean? He says, don't give me that about what you're doing. I got a call this morning from Lieutenant Governor Harvey, and he wants us to run this hospital. We don't want to run any hospital. Nobody want to on and on and on. And I know Don. And he got all through, and I said, Don, you know, yeah, you are, but we got to run that hospital. Psychiatry's so damn bad. Someone's got to run a hospital, knows what they're doing. He looks at me, say, yeah, you're right. and a little insight into Texas politics, how that happened. Don't forget the session was a week away to go. Now, at that time, I'm sure to have a conference committee. The conference committee consists of the Lieutenant Governor, the Speaker of the House, the head of the budget of the House, and the head of the budget of the Senate, and the Senate Pro Tem of the House, of the Senate, so there's 3-2. And they swap. It was a time where they swap, you do this for me, I'll do that for you, and they put riders on bills. And they put a rider on the bill. And a rider on a bill that was to be like any teaching hospital at the University of Texas, and on and on and on, which I insisted upon, because if you're going to do it, you got to be a teaching hospital. So that's in the charter of the hospital. It's a teaching hospital. It's sometimes forgotten. So then the bill passed, and people were shocked. All of a sudden, we had the university out of the blue had taken over this hospital that these other people were doing. So now it was the university leased it in perpetuity for $1 a year for half the hospital, and the other half was run by the county. Okay. The county insisted on hiring the architect, and Judge Lindsay, also a good guy, to design the hospital. Now, it so happened that the architect that they hired, 3D, was also the architect for the Herman Hospital Psych Service. And I had really got to know the architect, who really didn't know a lot about psychiatry, so I basically designed that building. So he takes over. So we'd always have these meetings, and what would happen is I had real ideas of how I wanted it done, and the county was good too. The people from the county really very helpful. We decided from the beginning, even though it's split, we'll design a hospital as one hospital, otherwise it'll be chaos. Okay, so I got the hospital built the way I wanted to do through the architect. Come 83, at that time the oil boom had gone plop. OPEC had taken over the oil companies, and we had a depression here. It was awful. A lot of people I knew lost their jobs, the oil business, it was grim. And the county couldn't pay for their half. They couldn't pay the operating expenses. They paid for the building. So Hobby and Lindsay made a deal where the state would pay 80% of the hospital and run the hospital completely. They would have their part where the outpatient department paid 20%. So got control of the whole hospital. Then I had control of everything. Now, the interesting thing about that is that the way the bill was written, that was a separate line item budget in the mental health department's budget, and I controlled it. Fast forward to 1985, session again. State's going to close TRIMS. They had it with it. I got wind of it, went to Hobby, asked him could I get it. He said, okay, he'll try to get it. So there I am, and then the local representative wanted to keep it, so I was working with him to patch some money together so we could run it. I'm in the dean's office. This is, the deal again was going into conference committee, the deal was going to get done. I get a call from Charlie Mullins, the Vice Chancellor of Health Affairs, and calls me. He says, Lou, you're an office of the university, and the university made a decision that we do not want the Texas research into the mental science. I had a hospital administrator. We got the hospital open, and that was in October of '86, and I got fired in September of '87. There were 4 or 5 other people. I'll get into that a little bit, but had a heck of a run. I mean, I enjoyed myself with that. I mean, it was just interesting. I able to build a department, had a research institute, had our own 250-bed hospital. You know, we developed research, had good faculty. We had a 250-bed hospital, modern. You know, we could teach the students. You know, it was a good space. It was quite an operation at that time. So when Dr. Soares came 10 years ago, he's ambitious, and he really started growing the place. And really, really has done a great job recruiting faculty, increased research. I've had just an unbelievable run. And back to Jair, he has just done a great job. He really is. He's enthusiastic. He's building research. They got the other 250 beds there. You know, I always, I got to laugh about it. That was always the thing to build the model for here. My always dream was then they would do it the rest of the state. And with that, they did. I think Jair told me that Dell in Austin, they've got one of the buildings in the hospital, and they'll be able to have their own building there. San Antonio, I don't know what they're doing. They'll do their own thing, and Dallas does their own thing. I don't know what Tech is doing. So, but I think it's a model which is good. As I look back at it, I'm grateful for a lot of the faculty I've had. I've had really good faculty, good people, dedicated, great teachers. Another aside, as I give a little history, everybody in the Department of Psychiatry had to teach, okay? We were teachers. At one time, they used to have the outstanding department, teaching department. We won it 5 years in a row, and then they stopped doing it. Anthony, be sneaky. He said, he thought, I want to do something for my father. So he calls up Jair. He says, you know, told him who he is. So they're talking back and forth. So Jair says, well, why don't you name the department? We'll name the department after him. And Anthony thought about it and said, okay, fine. So then he negotiated, he's a good negotiator with Giuseppe, and made a deal with Giuseppe had to put up some money, so they got 3 endowed chairs, and they got $2 million to fund faculty research, which is great. That's what we want. So, you know, it's endowment money, so you just use it's going to be perpetual. So that's good. Yeah. That's how. Yeah, I was shocked. That's something they don't name departments after the chairman. They made it after the donor, whoever gives the money. So I was, but whatever.